Hey, what is going on, guys? This is your boy Tanveer Syed. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe, bell notification button, leave a comment, yada yada yada. Okay, so today's video, I'm gonna talk about a topic that I thought I left closed because I've come across a lot of videos about The Last of Us Part 2 and its supposed in-depth storytelling, and also like how perhaps God of War is not as good, and only God of War, the latest version, has actually gotten to that deep of a storytelling narrative. And this got me thinking, maybe I ought to look a bit more into this and actually analyze for myself. Why is it that God of War 2018, albeit it's the best storytelling game, like this is so obvious, it's objectively the best storytelling game in the entire God of War series, but why does this have such an impact as to negate the previous games, making the previous games essentially a hacker slasher fantasy, essentially turning the previous games into bloody versions of Devil May Cry? So I got to thinking and I figured out, yes, there are some points. So I will look back at the God of War games and then I will structurally break down those games in terms of the story or certain elements of it and show you examples, illustrate to you examples of the depth of story, because if I show you the actual clips, like I might get copyright infringed or something. I don't know, this social media is being very, very awkward nowadays. But anyways, and then using that, I will show you or suggest to you where The Last of Us falls apart in terms of storytelling. And finally, I will let you know why I think the God of War 2018 game has the reputation of making the previous games look very shallow in storytelling. First thing people must understand after playing 6 God of War games is that God of War tells the story of Kratos and how the power structure around Kratos always manipulates his emotional state of mind and his quest for vengeance to fulfill only their needs. The Olympians use it, the Titans use it, even the ghost of Athena. At the end of God of War 3, it is shown that, or it is hinted that, Athena just essentially used Kratos once more to basically get the power of hope so she can rule over the Greek humanity. So this is a story of repeated betrayals and manipulation of someone who is just trying for a way to redeem himself. The next point, number 2. Okay, you look back at the prequels of God of War. Okay, starting from Kratos' childhood, the gods, for the gods' agenda themselves, have always found a way to wrong Kratos. Okay, Deimos gets taken whilst training. Deimos gets taken. Kratos fails to protect Deimos. Okay, Kratos is tricked into killing his own family as an orchestration by Ares. Then he finds out that Ares essentially saved Kratos to basically make him a weapon of Ares to help Ares take over Olympus. So you see, the multi-dimensional story that is being told. The gods have their own agenda, and Kratos is just a tool of achieving some of the goals of the gods or of a power structure. Okay, then in Chains of Olympus, we find that Persephone manipulates Kratos once again, his emotional state. Said that, okay, if you want, you can go visit Calliope at the Elysian Fields. You have to shed your weapons. And Kratos, seeing that, like, this is the daughter that he essentially killed out of his sense of loyalty and bravado and pride as a Spartan and the servant of Ares. He gets to see this daughter once more. And then he was compelled to make a decision that either be with her daughter and watch her die, because Atlas is going to bring down the pillar that holds up the world and that'll destroy everything, including the Elysian Fields as well. Or, just after meeting Calliope and telling Calliope that he will not leave, Kratos is compelled to leave Calliope, forsake Calliope, but leaving her alive in the Elysian Fields, but never being able to see Calliope ever again. And this is why, like, in the end of God of War, Chains of Olympus, it is shown that Kratos is saying, it is all I have. The word of an Olympian, it is all I have. Because Atlas knows that the Olympians are deceptive. And Atlas knows, I believe even that Kratos knows that the Olympians are deceptive. And that's why Kratos says, it is all I have. And see, even to the point, in Ghost of Sparta, Kratos finds out that Kratos has been wronged by the gods even as a child. This is why, like, when Kratos was forced to kill his own mom, when Kratos failed to protect his brother after finding Deimos with Thanatos, after Kratos has lost all that, Kratos tries to commit suicide once more. And he says, like, you know, by the gods, what have I become? And the gravedigger, who turns out to be Zeus apparently, says that the destroyer of worlds. And after losing all this, Athena comes up and says that your bonds to this world are severed and you have now become ready to become a god. And Kratos says, is this all a game to you? Like, all his losses and all his tragedy, is this all a game to the Olympians? And then, this perfectly explains the line in God of War 2, when the statue of one of the sisters says that you will never find peace, your soul will never find peace, what you have become. And Kratos says, I am what the gods have made me. And then, at the end of God of War 2, Kratos finds out that he has been wronged by the gods from the day he was born. Because he finds out his father is Zeus. And that's why he said, like, no, I have no father. So this Kratos always being a victim, and his suffering and his tragedy being a consequence of the desire of the gods, with no regard to the mortal humanity whatsoever. This is like one of the things that drives Kratos' rage, and basically causes him to lose faith in the competence of the gods. That's why Kratos says to Zeus, like, the gods are petty and pathetic and your rule is weak. So by this time, you would think that such a person would have lost their humanity. But no. In God of War 1, just to add to this, in God of War 1, Kratos is shown a vision of his failure once more. saying that, oh, you think you saved your family? No, you didn't save your family. You gave them up. Like, they're dead. And you cannot save them. And Kratos had to live that failure even once more. But even in God of War 1, Kratos says that by the gods, what have I become? So the shreds of his humanity are still there. Even in God of War 2, once the Kraken has Kratos wrapped and Kratos starts going into like a delusion, once Kratos sees, what's the wife's name? Lysandra in his delusion, he immediately apologizes. And he shows that he is very, very regretful for what he has done. So there are shreds of Kratos' humanity still there. And even in God of War 3, this, folks, God of War 3 in hindsight is an unbelievably underrated game. It's mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling. Okay. From the beginning. Okay, and by the way, just to put an exclamation point as to how intense Kratos' mental anguish is. At the end of God of War 1 and the beginning of God of War 1, Kratos was driven to the point of committing suicide. A Spartan warrior who was brought up by the principle that Spartans never let their backs hit the ground and they always die in battle, was driven to the point of committing suicide. Just let that sink in for a moment. Okay, but getting back to God of War 3. Kratos is like full rampage mode. In the beginning itself, he gets betrayed once more by a power structure, this time the Titans. And then, like, in the river Styx, meets the ghost of Athena. And then, slowly, Kratos starts to, even at some level, connect with Hephaestus. Hephaestus tells Kratos of Pandora. And Hephaestus tells Kratos that he was once a father too, so you can surely understand. Kratos is seeing that there is this another person, also an Olympian. Okay, well, Kratos is like a half god, but Kratos is also seeing this another person, despite being essentially crippled or whatnot, doing whatever he can with his abilities to protect their child. And you can see slowly this rubs off on Kratos. Like, whenever Kratos is confronted by Pandora or is reminded of Calliope, you can see Kratos he's a little bit taken back. And something always has to remind him of his quest to defeat Zeus. And surrounding all this, because if you look at the ending, okay, Kratos knows that his quest for vengeance is destroying the world around him. Kratos knows this. And people are reminding Kratos of this. Like, Hera says that everything is dying because of you. But Kratos would not be denied. So, once Kratos meets Pandora, Pandora starts telling Kratos about Hephaestus. Kratos even says it. Hephaestus did what every father should do. Protect their child. And then Pandora goes on and tells Kratos about hope. Kratos at this point, being so many times deceived and backstabbed and basically wronged by the gods, when Kratos only hoped for his nightmares to be taken away, after, by the way, many years. This is not just 1 or 2 years, this is many years. Okay? He just says hope is for the weak, Pandora. And then Pandora says that, you fought what we fight with and all else is lost. Then Kratos shows her essentially the ruins of the world, saying that this is what hope delivers. So you could see Kratos' mental state at this point. That it's to the point where he has nothing left. Next point, by the end of God of War 3, you see that Kratos finally wants to find another way, because Kratos knows that there is a price to pay for everything you gain. And in the beginning, Kratos wanted ultimate power, but did not want to pay the price of losing their family, their wife and child. Kratos at least saw a vision of Calliope in Pandora. Kratos could not pay this price again. But in the end, when Pandora ended up sacrificing herself, and then Kratos says, okay, Pandora sacrificed herself, for what? Then we found out the box was empty. And Kratos, in the end, you can see actually a sense of, Kratos was crying almost. That the price Kratos paid for his need for vengeance was another, Zeus put it properly, another stunning failure of protecting someone, of being able to protect someone, only for his need for vengeance. On top of watching the world stand in ruin. This is further solidified if you consider very few tidbits, if you will, in God of War 3. When Kratos is told by Pandora, I trust you to save me, or to free me, or to help me. I trust you. Kratos immediately stopped and said, you shouldn't. Because Kratos knows he has failed time and time again at that very thing. Kratos says, you shouldn't. And even at the very end, when Kratos, the last thing before he says this, is that all I remember is what I have lost. And Kratos has lost literally everything. From an emotional perspective, what really matters, everything. He was the reason for the death of his own family members, his own father, his own mother, his own children, and even a chance of redemption in Pandora. Kratos was the reason for Pandora's death. And then, when Pandora trusted Kratos was the reason for Pandora's death when Pandora trusted Kratos. And then the ghost of Athena says, I trust you to do the right thing. Again. And then Kratos said no. He looked back and said, you shouldn't. At that point, Kratos did not even trust himself to do anything right. But he ended up doing the one thing that he thought would be a slight gesture of his redemption. He essentially impaled himself with the blade of Olympus, releasing hope to the world, and also being refused to be manipulated by Athena. And also, notice, when Athena says, you disappoint me, Spartan, Kratos actually smirks at her face as if to say, yeah, so what's new? I have disappointed everyone. disappointing you is nothing new. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you see now the multi-dimensional depth of the previous God of War games? It is telling many stories at the same time. Many stories of, like, multiple stories of one person and multiple stories of another faction, unlike another, like, feuding faction, like the gods and the titans and whatnot. Compare this to The Last of Us, even the first one, okay? The first one, you are just supposed to think that, okay, Joel went through all this and that and whatnot. Okay, and Joel found in Ellie a surrogate daughter or something. And why Ellie and Joel had several other children to connect with, okay, to be a surrogate dad to, but why only Ellie? Because Ellie is immune to the virus? She's not immune to taking a bullet to the head or being shot. By the way, that's how Sarah died. Sarah was shot. Sarah did not succumb to the virus. Okay, and that's why that ending or that part where Joel at one point said the logical thing, you will be better if Tommy escorts you because Tommy knows the area better. Tommy knows how to get things done better because he's more familiar with the terrain, more familiar with the fireflies, and is less likely to get shot by the fireflies. That's what a logical person, even as a father figure, would do. Because as a father figure, the first concern of yours is the safety of your child. Go back to God of War 3. You'll see, protect their child. Even if Hephaestus was not there with Pandora, what mattered to Hephaestus was the protection and the safety of their child. In God of War Chains of Olympus, if it meant that Calliope will be all alone but will be still alive instead of dead and be protected, then as difficult as a decision it may be, Kratos took that decision. And this is why, like I said, the ending of The Last of Us could have been what sealed the deal as The Last of Us being the best story ever told. If, unlike other such situations, if Joel essentially handed Ellie over to Marlene and basically shot himself because he could not live with this decision. But he understood that saving his child cannot, he cannot save his own child at the risk of killing everyone else's children. He cannot be a mass murderer just for one surrogate daughter, because everyone else has real children. If he could understand that larger perspective, and if he would have done what I have suggested, that would have been the perfect ending to The Last of Us first one. And we would not need The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 has nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is so obvious. Okay? This is as obvious as Terminator Dark Fate being a bad movie. As obvious as The Last Jedi being a bad movie. This is an obvious, objective fact that The Last of Us Part 2 is a bad story. A story that is poorly told. A bad storytelling game. Just as objective as Dark Fate was a bad movie. Just as objective as The Last Jedi was a bad movie. The Last of Us Part 2 is objectively a bad story. For more details on this channel, go to the reviews of The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. Otherwise, this video is going to be 2 hours longer. So why then? Why is God of War 2018 praised to the point of overshadowing its predecessors? Firstly, it's because unfortunately most people nowadays are pseudo-intelligent but actually stupid. Okay? Let's not pretend that this shorter attention span and this lack of patience is a normal thing and it's not a bad thing. Let's not pretend that it's not a bad thing. Okay? The rate of decay of information and the shortage of retention, the increase of shortage of retention is a very bad thing, because this actually prevents people from synthesis of new information. And believe me, artificial intelligence has not come close to the point of human ingenuity, of human intelligence. It has, and perhaps it will not come close, because there is a limit. Okay, if you know Moore's law, there is a limit. So that's one of the reasons. Another one is that a consequence of this is that people nowadays have to be spoon-fed a narrative or storytelling with a baby spoon, whilst the people are wearing baby bibs on a baby chair. You have to be told everything explicitly. Like, there is no room for subtlety anymore. I understand there is some places where you need explanations and subtlety is not good, because if it's too subtle, it's too open to multiple interpretations, many of which are contradictory. And despite what the stupid subjective opinion professors who for some reason draw a salary for teaching nonsense tell you, not every interpretation is right. And not every interpretation is right because only of a certain perspective and a subjective viewpoint. Those are very myopic. Irony, isn't it? Legally blind guy talking about myopic viewpoints. Okay, also, don't get me wrong, God of War 2018 is the best God of War game ever made so far. And my game of PlayStation 4, the game that defines PlayStation 4, God of War 2018. But storytelling in video games has evolved. It really has evolved, and the Last of Us, at least it tried to tell a dynamic story. That stories were not just confined to cutscenes. Stories were actually part of the interactive element of the game. And yes, I saw another video that says that, oh, the storytelling, blah, 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 blah. Storytelling, the sequence of events and blah, like, the video game is very new and storytelling is not. Shut up, buddy. Just shut your mouth. How freaking stupid are you? Shut your mouth. Okay, enough. If you want to apply a storytelling of the 15th and 16th century with video games, okay, then go back in the 15th and 16th century. That type of thinking does not belong here. But anyways, that level of dynamic storytelling where you are constantly interacting with Atreus, or you are constantly watching Atreus develop. Had God of War had such a story before, even with a character like Pandora, where you had an extensive amount of time watching Pandora's behavior and your reaction to it, knowing that both people are completely different mental constructs, and they have their own different perceptions of the world, one with very little experience, one with multiple lifetimes of experience in Kratos. That interaction and that dynamism, had that been in the previous God of War games, even with the previous God of War format, like not the over-the-shoulder thing, the ones that were in like essentially the first 6 games, it would have garnered the same praise. And that is why, in conclusion, the sophistication, the depth, and the quality of the God of War stories, even the previous games, it puts God of War on such a level that neither of the Last of Us games, including the DLC Left Behind, those 3 combined does not come within even radar detection range, does not come even within perceivable view of how good God of War is. The Last of Us, it does not come close. If you think it does, let's have a healthy discussion about it in the comment section below. Because I have played all, the Last of Us games, pretty much all the God of War games, the main ones. I did not play Betrayal. I'm not playing something on mobile. So let's have a healthy discussion about it in the comment section below. And I'm pretty sure we're going to learn a lot more from each other. Alright, so that's it for this video. And the next video, because see, this is more like a podcast format channel. So the next video, it depends on what the next topic is going to be. I know there is Bangladesh cricket coming up, so closer to that time I will make those videos. Alright, please leave a like, subscribe, and a bell notification button, and leave a comment in the comment section below. This is Tanveer Syed signing out.